Shalom, welcome back. Now we're going to be doing lesson number 22. So without further ado, let's begin. Lo tikach, you shall not take, isha, a woman, li bani, for my son. Mi banot, from the daughters, ha-Kanani, of the Canaanites. Asher, which, anochi, I am, Yoshev, dwelling, ba'artzo, in his land. Okay. So the Torah, as we see here in this passage, we're going to now break apart the grammar and really define these issues properly so that we can understand them. First off, what is lo tikach? Lo tikach is a permanent state of a command. Whenever you use the word lo in Hebrew, you're expressing something when you use it in a command form as an absolute not. This is what we would say in English, if you wanted to say in a real emphatic way, absolutely in no way or no shape, form, or any circumstance will you do such a thing. That's the concept that we have to understand with regard to lo. This is a permanent prohibition. So, lo tikach, you shall not take. Well, let's first look at tikach. The word tikach, we see that the tav is the word for you. This is the second person pronoun. And then of course what we have left is kach, right? Just like we did in the last time. So here, knowing that the dagesh is in the middle of the first root, we know that this is the lama that's missing because we learned that root from the other time. We could go through the 6 possible roots, but we would find that none of these things would make sense, so therefore we know we have to use the irregular form. So, you shall not take. Now, I like to put at times brackets around words that I know don't exist in its literalness, because when we're looking at this from a literal standpoint, there is no shall in Hebrew. Shall is a mood that's attached to the verbs. Okay? That's what makes Hebrew very complex, because when we're looking at Hebrew, we have to understand that the verb expresses also the mood. And so in order for my mind to understand that I'm not to think of I'm supposed to add some other word, then I like to put brackets to tell my mind, remember, this word is a part of the grammatics of it. It's not the same thing in relationship to the literal looking of it. Okay? When you want to look at the differentiation between like words that are literally things you have to add for context, I like to put, like, for example, you can think of putting these kind of brackets around this. Okay? This expresses the fact that this word does not exist. You have to add it because the translation doesn't make sense without this word, but this word doesn't in itself exist in the actual thing. You're adding it for the emphasis for the actual concept of the word to exist. Whereas if you put brackets like this, you're saying this word does exist in relationship to the concept of the grammar. It's just that the word does not exist literally in the actual sentence itself. And that's something that you can do with relationship to helping yourself out. So the next part we get the word is isha. Now isha is a woman. Notice I'm going to put brackets because the word a does not exist. A is an indefinite article only used in English, but Hebrew does not carry indefinite articles. Indefinite articles is really the concept of how English focuses upon indefiniteness. Hebrew only uses the noun in its normal form, which creates the indefinite state. Only do we find that when we change the noun, are we going to find when we're changing the state of the noun. So to make it definite, there is 2 things that we're going to find we do to this. Either A, we'd add a definite article in front of the noun, or B, we would add a pronoun to the end of it, and that would make the noun definite. The only other case we'd find as definite is the noun's a proper noun. Okay? So here we have next, we have Isha for. Okay, so for here is what we're using. For, and a for, remember this is an inseparable preposition. This is what we have to use when we're connecting. For, so here we have the word, literally, we have to go backwards in order to remember that bet nun yod, okay, well, excuse me, let's go back here. I went to plural. Bet nun yod, okay, is the word ben, and it's plus the pronoun that is possessive, which is the word, the letter yud, which expresses the concept of my. So you have son, ben plus, this is what we would normally do, is we'd have an E sound, so E. So here we have to change the formality of the vocal point to bani. So bani is my son, okay? For my son. Here we have to go back and know this is the preposition. This is an inseparable preposition in this case. Normally we would see mean in the case where we would find a hey noun. So for example, me'aretz. We say min ha'aretz when we're saying from the. So whenever we're saying min, we're only going to use it in this case when it's min ha. That's the only time we're ever going to use min. All the other times we're going to use min, we're going to use it in the inseparable part. So we're going to basically break off the nun and attach the mem to the actual first letter in the word, okay? And in this case, we are doing this because this here is either going to be an indefinite or a definite. Since we're beginning, in this case, an actual noun construct, the word banot, ha-kanani, is our noun construct. So banot is daughters, which here we have the word bat, and in the plural form we have banot, okay? So bat is my feminine singular, where banot is my feminine plural. Notice the tab disappears, and notice the nun. So this is an irregular noun when we put it into the plural form. Very similar to what we find with regard to the word ish when we go from ish to anashim. It's the same kind of concept where it changes a little bit when going from a singular to plural, okay? Banot, so from, so we have from the daughters. Notice the fact that I have to say the because this noun here is definite, okay? And ha-kanani is, the word kanani is expressing a race. It's a specific family and genealogy called the Canaanites. So, okay, so Canaanites, you say Canaanite or Canani, if you wanted to write it that way. So here we're saying the because it's defining the actual race of people. So we have to remember, he says from the daughters, we're going to have to add the word of because this is a noun construct. The Kanani, you can put a K, you can put a C, it doesn't really matter because you're just transliterating it if you're going to be utilizing this the case, okay? Or Canaanites. Alright? So it doesn't really matter in this case. Asher, this is our relative pronoun, which means which. And here we're going to have to actually interpose the noun are. Okay, why are we having to interpose the word are? Okay, or, no, in this case not, sorry. Which, and then we're going to go to here, Anochi, I, and this is where we're going to have to interpose am. Why am? Because this is stating a noun sentence in relationship to, or not a noun sentence, but it's stating a noun that's in the present tense. And since we don't have verbs of existence in Hebrew, these are all going to have to be supposed, interplaced in this so that you can make sense of it. Because basically you're saying I, Yoshev, dwelling. So am is the issue of present tense in this case. So he says, Anochi Yoshev, I am dwelling, okay, or sitting, or staying. Remember the word Yoshev, the Yashav, has to do with like a permanent state of residence, in a sense. Yoshev, I am dwelling. Ba, this is our preposition, which is the word for in. Then we have to break apart this part of the root. So here we have left over Aleph, Resh, Tzadi, which is the word for Eretz, which is the word for land. So in land, and then we have to make up for this arzo. So the vav here plus the vav, which is the word for his. So in his land is how we would be translating this. In his land. Alright? So the Torah, as we see here, goes to indicate and gives us the understanding, the fact that with relationship to the land of Canaan, okay, that as we see here in this passage, it's talking about Abraham, where he says, which I am, Yoshev, dwelling, ba'artzo, in his land, that we see that the possessive pronoun is used at the end of here to indicate a definite state of the noun. The same thing we find with relationship to here, we see the definite article is used. That's why I said to you, the only way to change this noun here is you'd have to do two things. Either one, add the definite article hey, or add a pronoun that's possessive, which indicates the possessive pronoun state of the noun. So, ishatecha, or it would be like ishto, sorry, his wife or his woman. Okay, that's how you would be putting it. So, one thing we need to understand with relationship to, for example, the relative pronoun. The relative pronoun has many different values to it. Okay, when we go through different sentences, we will see the different differentiations. This one, for example, can be used for that and that, as well as who, when it's used in front of a future tense, or when it's used in front of a past tense verb. We'll see asher is used for who or that when it's used in a past tense verb. We'll see how also when we're using a present tense verb that there is a grammatical differentiation between the asher and the attachment that we would see over here. In this segment, you're going to be going over and basically just repeating all of the things that you've been learning the past few lessons to go over. It shouldn't be that difficult. Notice how we just rip apart each part of the words, the grammar, to understand what they are, what this thing means. This is just going to continually help as we go further on in our studies, and to break apart so that we can see and understand what it is that we're needing to do in order to figure out how to understand a word and how to understand the grammatics and what's going on. One thing I will have to say is make sure that you focus on your verb charts. You know, if you go to my website, yadramad.wordpress.com, and you check out the verb charts, if you check out the verb charts, it's really going to help you identify all of these different verb forms, which are more important than really the other things that you're going to see, because these change drastically, the verbs. And it's so important to memorize the actual things, to know when it's future, to know when it's past, to know if it's he, fil, it's PL. And this is going to be vitally important in your growth of learning Biblical Hebrew. I hope you enjoy this lesson. We'll see you next time as we go to lesson number 23 as we continue learning. And we're almost halfway through the book, so this is a really good thing that we're getting there. We're getting close to these lessons, to seeing as we progress forward. You notice that the sentences are more complex. There's a lot more idealisms that are being brought forth, and there's a lot of grammatical things that you see take place. And these videos, I really want you to understand, these videos are just going to help you with really grasping the concepts of what we see with regard to how Biblical Hebrew is structured. The things that I think are very important for people if they want to really understand certain elements is go to the different segments that I have on the website that focuses only on nouns or only on verbs and talking about these specific things, so you can master your skills and understand how verbs function and even understand how roots function. Like this is, just the whole lessons are being set up specifically so that, everything that you're learning, you can just completely go right into learning the Torah, learning Hebrew, and you can begin starting to break apart things and understanding the grammatics of it. We'll see you next time.